So I'm here meditating, right? In the dark. And something came to mind. While I'm here meditating, not only am I continuously feeling my diaphragmatic breathing activating on its own, but essentially I call that a stronghold, and that's what came to mind was how this diaphragmatic breathing, which is basically intentional breathing versus automated breathing, how it pretty much gives way to showing that because of the fact that our diaphragmatic breathing has to be so hard to take in the breath and then thus even at that exert. I call it's due to this oppression factor, or whatever seems to be consistently inducing inside of us. What basically I translated as being our spiritual weapons. Because continuously in the spirit, I notice that my heart gets like poured into continuously in the spirit over and over. And I'm like, what is it doing? And I just realized like it's equipping my heart with anger. Why? Because I've always chose to be, suppose, my better self, or a person that isn't so easily hurt. And so, for a long time, all I did was just kind of like put up with people's bullshit. Excuse the language, but essentially, and so they weaponized it. They turned love into something that at first moment you think of, it should have been like reacted to rather than responded to, and that was the whole intention behind it. But clearly they failed miserably. But essentially, it's like anger is basically a spiritual weapon, and it's used in the spirit realm. The only thing is that the spirits know this, and they don't necessarily how do I put this, count on having to explain it or you even knowing it. Actually, it kind of is that, but also isn't. So I mean, essentially it's like your anger that you're filled with, you're meant to transmute it into other aspects of yourself, other energies, and other ways of expressing it. But the one thing you're not supposed to do is give it words or give it foothold for any like resentment or something that you are holding on to or unwilling to let go of, or maybe even at that phase so it could be resolved. So essentially I'm right here and I'm just like meditating, right? And I'm like kind of looking back at like a lot of the stuff that's already happened, and I've kind of noted that like what was the whole point of that was basically teaching me spiritually how to manage my anger and how to manage myself in my angry state. And so basically that becomes the whole essence of what's been like going on in the background of the scenes, like behind the scenes, the unseen world, how it looks into the seen world, expecting to remain unseen, but that can no longer happen because now we see them as clear as looking into the sky or looking into moving sky or changing sky. I mean, that's constantly them. So and yeah, so I mean, for those out there, who are still kind of like consistently having all this trauma dumped or this trauma brought up or created as a cycle or a loop for you to visit continuously inside of yourself, I mean, best way that I clarify would be for yourself to just acknowledge that you're allowed to feel angry. Practice even at that, maybe being the one that has control over pushing yourself into angry, and do it intentionally. In a controlled environment rather than in a environment where others are expecting you to react and waiting and awaiting the moment where you explode, all so they can capture whatever it is that they want to capture, or say whatever it is that they want to say, or believe whatever it is that they want to believe, or maybe even prove a point. Because apparently, I mean, here their belief was that they're here trying to make this happen. Here myself, I thought the belief was that I have to accept that in life all possibilities are a possibility, so, and that's all held within potential. So here they are continuously though, repetitively, and I mean, we've already established these aspects of ourselves, so hopefully this video is able to help some of y'all out there, but strongholds, essentially, that's kind of what they're here in my meditation kind of like talking to me through as well, because I mean, the continuous aspect of my meditation is noting my aligned spine. And since I'm meditating and they already know that I'm aware of them, what they do on purpose now is they intentionally make my nervous system react and respond so as to tell me that they're here. But it's also based on the narrative and the perspective that my mind chooses to hold for me as a point of view. And that's where it is that I've gotten kind of a little suspicious about who I'm around, and what kind of company I'm around or keep, or how much more I should be addressing the company that I find myself not just keeping to myself for myself, but inviting others to also be introduced into. So this is an aspect of myself that I have to be working on because of this variation of stronghold. Now, I'm not exactly sure where it's coming from, but they have spent a lot of time investing trying to point me out towards somebody, towards someone, especially those in my immediate vicinity, anybody who might be particularly someone I'm in association with, because it's like they're one of their aspects that take advantage as well. When they're able to isolate an individual, it seems to be that their narrative, their point of view, and their perception seems to be the thing that person drowns in. I know this because before I was here in this situation, I lived on my own. I had my own apartment. I had my own well, actually, I was just renting a room, but and this was the process that I myself experienced that during that duration there. So this is just me speaking, having already walked out of that, and now coming into a different phase of myself, and making sure that I'm clearing the way, clarifying for everybody who might have had their 2 cents or their nose in it, or even just the interest of having invited their sight to be perceptive to what it is that's carrying on, in each other's happenings and to others as well, because as they say, if it starts to happen to one, you can expect that it might continue to happen to all the rest of them as well, so it's very important in the sense why right now, even though again, it ain't the first time things like this, people speculated such, aspects or conspiratorial perceptions or perspectives, like I said, if it's a broken intuition and all that means is now, I'm living other people's lives through me, because, if I have intuition and my intuition basically just puts me in other people's shoes without me having to be in those shoes. And if it's a broken intuition, which in my opinion, just somebody who learned to manipulation within a person. Manipulate intuition within a person. And so it seems like this is where they're at right here. Driving this car of intuitive factors by insinuating, dropping their tone, because they understand that human communication isn't always what I'm saying. Sometimes it's about the tone that I take with you, or how I say something to you, or the way that I choose for you to want to be able to perceive me or feel me or hear something particularly, but ultimately this is the advantage point that they seem to always want to bring us to not only be aware of our own, but as well as to others. But that's kind of the place where they see, since that's a car that you're usually blind to, they'll whisper to you and whisper based on the tones people use, based on like subliminal, categories of our own experiences ourselves, pretty much, so. But right now, this is where I'm at, it's just aspecting that right now, is they understand the entire human working. They say that we have about 15 senses. So if those are 15 senses, those are 15 doors that essentially by, working on my meditation, I'm working on not just becoming aware of, but also becoming the guard of, and thus, bringing you guys along for the ride so you guys can kind of comprehend how it is that we have to figure out so we can shut this system of control down, by establishing ourselves as being the governing of the governor, in the essence of what is applied in our self-perception, looking at ourselves and the mechanics that are our operating system. Because again, right now, meditation, my chakra points, my alignment, this continuous, interaction with the dynamics that are my nervous system, and these things that are here feeding my mind whatever beliefs and ideas they can pretty much cause me to perceive or pick up that they spoke on, thus forming this, visualization, and then this internal story, and then pretty much putting bullets in their guns, because essentially the gun that they're going to revolve around over and over is going to be these beliefs and ideas and emotions attached to it, and how you seem to either, if not respond, then react. And most likely, if they're involved, it's reaction that they're leaning towards, at least getting you to perceive and getting you to believe and getting yourself to speak, because the moment you start speaking it, well, basically they've wiggled their way into your life. That's why right now they haven't like exited mind, because they feel that because they got a foothold, that they have the right, to whatever it is that essentially, I mean, and I mean, it's like, come on, it's like me saying, because, I mean, I'm alive, I'm just gonna walk up all the way to the White House, enter the White House, step, all the way into the president's office, and sit in the presidential office just because I'm alive. And that's the perspective they take on being here, playing this. We're not so technologically advanced that we can measure whatever inputs are happening here, because energy can be tracked by thermal, it can be tracked by radiation, it can be tracked by gamma rays, or all these other different aspects of measuring energy, at least supposedly, But my belief is that we're not so far away from having a mechanical machine or drone that's going to go around flying city to city examining people, all to see the perspective of who it is that might have to have a Bluetooth set, not just in earphones, but also maybe in glasses, so that way maybe some aspect of life can take over them and guide them if they really believe that there is in any way something that is interrupting them being able to do that for themselves. That's what there's AI for, All we need is to basically think about what was weaponized, into a way of, utilizing it to be more progressive in our society, So if anybody is suffering through any, mental disturbances, emotional disturbances, or the capacity to not be able to maintain their attention because they believe whatever things are being explained or told to them that are the associations or, underlying perspectives to certain matters, but it doesn't really actually get to, addressing it, or even figuring out a way or making a way to actually be able to find someone not just getting through it, but having lived an entire life, having had such condition. Because up until right now, I mean, if we're understanding that all they're aiming for is turning people all into like people who are afraid of being called mental, people who are afraid of being judged for their emotions, people who are afraid of being judged for their ideas, people who are afraid of being judged for what they've gone through, lived, and experienced. And, all these things that have caused fear, all the things that we've had to confront, and we've overcame it, So now here we are in this perspective where we got to pretty much gather ourselves to bring ourselves to this comprehension of this information that is pretty much essentially us, us having to do the job that we were told was given to others to manage and direct for us. But essentially, I mean, it's basically depending on society being there to do what society is there to do. And for the most part, we haven't really been clarified as to what it is that society actually can, in potential, through all these new advancements, especially through technology, can achieve. So momentarily, I mean, we're here, doing things the old ways, with old dynamics, with old, answers. I mean, right now, think about it. We're resorting to the old ways, Like right now, just for us to feel joy, we got to go outside and dance around, or be able to like embrace our joy and, use our bodies in movement, in motion, like kind of like doing a little worship dance, a little praise dance, I mean, that's old ways, From there, sitting down and look at my meditation practice that I was just, working on, this meditation practice pretty much, I mean, it's old, it's the old ways, So now we're turning back to the old ways, which means like, these things that are pretty much, gonna have to provide for us the things that we're gonna push them to provide for us, and make ways that we ourselves are gonna see in association with that to our benefit, and that better more to the benefit of what it is that we're actually establishing here to be for the continuance of that is in the continuance of, So, but essentially, like I said, right now, I mean, if it really gets so drastic, if people really find this problematic, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's companies out there that are willing to hire human puppets, that are willing to put on a headset, a virtual reality headset, and live for the company rather than for themselves, And I mean, if that's where we're headed, then, I mean, it's better that you guys get a heads up. We're awaiting the company that's going to provide free helmets with free information, free healthcare, free living, free food, free traveling, free everything. All you got to do is just wear the helmet the rest of your life. And I mean, that's what I'm waiting for. The moment they come up with that, dude, I'm going to go sign up so quick, dude. It's going to be like a 1, 2, 3 type of thing. I'm not even going to think about it, I'll be the first one there. But hey, again, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. And You guys enjoy your night.